It's not a matter of how fast, how far, or even where we run. Whether we run 1 mile or 100 miles, we are on a journey and embracing where it leads us. This is Running for Distance. All right, thank you for joining me today on Running for Distance. This is your host, Anthony Gilbert, and I have a runner. Well, who wouldn't be a runner on here? But I have had people that are not runners. But I have an individual from the Sunshine State, the land of oranges and Miami Heat fans and Miami Hurricanes, and also ultra running extraordinary people, Tim Wills.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having
Absolutely.
me.
I should have mentioned also, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, author. And so Tim has just recently written a book that we'll talk about here in just a little bit that is getting ready to go out on Amazon. And I went out last night and pre-ordered it. And so thanks for giving me a heads up on that it dropped literally last night for the pre-order. And so I'm excited to get it and read it. I love being able to support other people out there. I mean, especially like yourself and other people that are doing those types of things. Because the way I see it is, the running community is one big family. And so if we can support one another, whether it's a podcast or a book, honestly, I'm not in it for the money.
But
I
agree with that.
It's a passion project, and it's things that you want to be able to help grow the community and be able to share experiences. That's what I like to do, is just to share experiences and see if we can encourage or inspire somebody somewhere along down the road that might either be struggling, right? As we both know, people can struggle oftentimes, whether it's injury or mental issue with running, or they might just be starting out with running and they don't even know where to start. And as we both know, ultra running, it's a different breed. It's not a breed of runners that you would find doing 5Ks and 10Ks. It's definitely a step in the direction of many people would call you crazy, have called me crazy. What are you thinking? Why do you do those types of things? And we'll get into that as well. But I guess the first question I have for you today, Tim, is what got you into running to begin with? Because a lot of my guests, they come from a wide range of backgrounds, including myself, basketball, soccer, wrestling. Yeah. Some people didn't have anything at all. In most instances, people think of, running was a form of punishment or additional cross training for whatever sport they might be in. What kind of led you into the running family?
Yeah, I've been active all my life. I mean, even as a kid, just constantly running outside. I was not one to stay indoors very much. I just grew up always running outside, always on the bike, always swimming in the lakes around. And I guess that's a triathlon right there,
Yes.
I've always gravitated towards just wanting to be active. I don't know if it's just that I'm a hyperactive person or I just have energy I want to burn or what, but I played team sports growing up, a lot of baseball. Then I got heavily into basketball for a number of years. After high school, probably around when I was 25, I started, really running, and I started, just going out for runs, and maybe they'd range 2 or 3 miles. And I remember saying, oh, wow, 3 miles, that's actually a 5K. I didn't know I can run a 5K, and man, it just kind of took off from there,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny how you say, you had a lot of energy as a child. And I know so many of us as children, from my experience, the older I get, I realize, I had a pretty good childhood, and, what my boys, I try to encourage them to be out as much as possible. Now they don't always do it. But like you said, I was always outside as well. And my mom knew I had a lot of energy, and she would make me go run as a form of discipline. One way, and it wasn't really punishment, but I had so much energy that she wanted me to do something productive, right? And so she sent me outside to run a lap. And that's kind of how I got going too, is just so much energy and the outdoors was a great place to do it. And so, you're running around, biking, swimming, whatever. I mean, it's a healthy lifestyle. And what better way to get rid of that extra energy than to go outside and burn it off? I mean, you're in the outdoors. There's not much better place than to go
Yeah.
outdoors and do those things. And as we both know, as active young boys, love to explore, love to go out and do different things. And so, you talked about baseball, lots of experience in my past, lots of baseball, right? Whether it was sandlot baseball, or just pickup games at the lot, you just go out and you play for hours and hours and hours, and you completely wear yourself out.
Yeah.
And, the basketball thing, that was my first love, was basketball. But, through the course of basketball and, other sports, you have to have that conditioning. You have to have that running.
Right.
Especially with basketball, it's, people think, oh, you don't run much with basketball. Yeah, you do. It's a lot of short sprints and, up and down the floor, and it's a lot of hustle. So you start off real small, you're doing short distances, and you're getting to where, hey, this is a pretty cool thing. I'm enjoying it. Getting a couple miles in down here and there. Oh, I'm doing a 5K. And so then that starts to intrigue you to do a little bit more, right? It becomes a healthy addiction, right? To where, you do short miles, and then those short miles start to grow, and you're like, I could probably do more. And if you're like I am,
right.
You like to challenge yourself, and what's next?
Yep. And as the endurance grows, the runs get easier, right? So, eventually, those 3 miles that I used to find a struggle, just began to get easier. So then I was able to, take it up to the 10K and, attempt the half marathon. And then as those got a little easier, step it up to the marathon. And yeah, I just always enjoyed, for me, I just always enjoyed the distance, And I suppose ever since I started running, even just a few miles at a time, I was never one to think, well, let me see how fast I can do this. I want to do it faster and faster and faster. That wasn't me. My story is the distance. Well, if I could do 3, maybe I can do 6. If I did 6, maybe I could do the 13, and so on and so forth. So
yeah, I think it's definitely that competitiveness, right? And so it's like, what's next? Yeah, I conquered 3, give me 6. And, and a lot of people out there, Tim, don't, they haven't necessarily been educated. I know when I started running, was, in the late 80s, early 90s. And, I wasn't aware of long distance running other than, I knew of marathons. I definitely knew of half marathons.
Right.
But growing up, there was no talk of anything like ultra marathons or things of that nature. That was something that you didn't even think about, right? The most I ever thought about was, as most people growing up, things like the New York City Marathon, the Boston Marathon, those big named races, you knew what they were, but you also thought, that seems kind of out of reach because I do not have, that's for the really great runners. And that was kind of the stigma that I had growing up, was I didn't even consider those things.
Right.
Stick to shorter distances because it's safer, right? My mom would always tell me, running those long distances is not healthy for you. And, let's keep it short. She didn't even like me going out and running 5 miles, right? Especially in the heat. She's like, that's dangerous. No. So, but for me, I loved the allure of the distance when I was younger. But I was very competitive with myself, and I'd go out for a run, and I still have to keep myself reined in sometimes because I like to go out and run faster and faster and be like, man, I ran this one faster this last week. What can I do this time? But as I get older, you learn you got to slow it down. And that's why I grew into ultra running, was you don't have to go fast. It's you try to cover as much distance as you can, and it's all about endurance.
Right. No, and I agree with a lot of what you said, and I agree with the fact you were talking about how, maybe reading about marathons, or maybe when I started reading about ultras, that was just way too overwhelming for me, to think of at the time, because there I was still struggling with the marathon, and I struggled with the marathon for years, and, although I was entertaining the fact that maybe I can, maybe I can try an ultra someday, and I would read a lot about ultras. But I was just struggling with the marathon, and it was just for a number of years, like, God, I don't know if that'll ever be me. I don't know if I'd ever be able to do that. And I just kept dreaming, I just kept reading about it. And yeah, just, I don't want to say I started getting better with the marathon. They're always going to be a challenge for me. But I guess I began to feel a little more comfortable with distance, and I think the mindset started to get a little stronger too. I think I just began to accept certain things and how it's going to be, and I just feel a little more comfortable physically and mentally with that kind of amount of uncomfort, and step it up a little bit more,
Yeah, the marathon is definitely a distance. I don't know, even the elite runners, I don't even know if they truly ever get comfortable at that distance, because it's such a strain and a stressor, right? Because the elite athletes are going out, and they're trying to go out, a lot of them competing for the Olympic teams and whatnot, or, breaking world records and things of that nature. So that's a whole different level of stress. Someone like myself, when I went out and ran my first marathon, when I got done with it, I was like, I'm not ever going to not run another one of those again. That's ridiculous.
And,
because I mean, for the general population, in most instances, you're looking at someone going out running it in probably 5 hours, 5.5 hours, maybe. For those that are a little bit better and seasoned, in the 3 hour to 4 hour range. But for the general population, that's a long time to be out running. And as we both know, it really can start to mess with you physically, but also mentally, because if the weather is not cooperating, and as we both know, we're not as
humid. We get the heat.
We're not as humid as you guys are because you're coastal, but Tulsa can get a lot of humidity and some areas. But I mean, you start to get to the warmer temperatures and the higher humidity, and then that throws a whole different dynamic into running, because you can train and that humidity can catch up to you and not even realize it. Right. It's one thing to be warm. It's another to add humidity to it. And some of my races, temperatures were like upper 70s, not a big deal. The humidity started to creep up 70, 80% humidity. And before you know it, you're in trouble because you haven't been hydrating like you should. And now you're dehydrated and you're depleted. And while the marathon is not going to completely derail you, it can for some if they're not ready for it. But it's a long haul for anybody to be out there. And I wanted to ask you, what goes through your mind? I know you've ran a number of those races, but what's one of the things that's going through your mind? Because I know for me, my mind is all over the place, because I'm either thinking about my body or, what's coming up next, whether it's the hills or whatever's on the course. And I'm just trying to get through the mile that I'm in.
Yeah, I agree. No matter the distance, I'm trying to do the best I can, right? So it doesn't really matter for me what distance it is. I'm just trying to do the best that I can. And regardless, I get to a point in the race, I know every runner can relate, where it just seems like, wow, I'm really feeling it. And things are starting to get tough. Yep, the heat's coming out, the humidity's up, and I'm running into trouble, and I still got a ways to go. That can do some damage on the mind, and I agree. And I think it's completely normal. It's how we deal with it. It's how we just continue on, that I think makes a big difference, it's tough. It's tough. And I don't know what goes through my mind, positivity and negativity, and I do agree that we do have a choice of where we channel that energy. And I also think it's normal to have some down miles, some really stressful times in a race where things aren't going our way, and the mental space isn't too good, and it's up to us to pull out of that, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Cause I mean, just like work, just like a normal run, Tim, it's like, you know, I had one just last week where, you know, it wasn't a good run. It was a struggle,
Hmm.
right? Whether, my mind wasn't in it, my body wasn't in it. I just was
Yeah.
out of sync, and I was just all over the place, right?
Yeah.
The body just, my gait was off, my breathing was off, the humidity was up, the temperature was up, and you're right. You know, you have a choice on whether you channel the positive or the negative. But I also agree with you. You should experience some of that negative energy or those negative thoughts or those hard miles, because it allows you to appreciate the good ones, right? You've
Right.
got to
Right.
experience some bad, because if you don't, you won't know what bad is.
Yeah.
And you've got to be
Yeah.
able to get through the grind. That's why training is so important, especially for marathons and ultra running, is you've got to put in a lot of miles and a lot of time on the feet to grind through those hard times, so that when you do hit that time, one, you can identify it, but
Hmm.
two, you can also be prepared for what's coming. While we're not always be able to be prepared for what's out there, you have a
Yeah.
better opportunity when you've trained yourself mentally and physically.
Yeah. You said it.
But things totally change.
Right.
It shifts tremendously when you go from the marathon distance to the ultra marathon distance, because it's a whole different, like I said, it's a whole different beast, a whole different dynamic. Um, you know, not a lot of people, what is it? The marathon was what, less than 1% of the general population has run a marathon, right? And it's still considered a very elite group of people.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it's becoming more popular. And they say even more so with the ultra marathon. It's like, I don't even know what the percentage is how many people have run ultras and then 100 milers, etc. But it's the training and the mental mindset that really
Yeah.
um, gets you.
I
Um,
yeah.
So I was going to say or ask you, you know, you ran all these marathons. What kind of shifted in your mindset of wanting to run an ultra? Because I mean, it's
Right. I think I just keep on wanting to put myself in situations to test my mental strength. You know, honestly, I just think, and especially with ultra running, probably especially with 50 milers, 100 milers, um, you know, it gets to a point for me where it's mental. Like literally, I have nothing physically left. I'm just not that strong physically to carry me through 50, 100 miles. Um, I just believe the mental strength takes over, you know, and the training for it. And you said it, physically and mentally. I like both. I like training runs that go great, and I like training runs that don't go so well,
mhm.
because I just feel like it's important to strengthen mind and body. You know, if there's a training run I got to get up for, I want to run 12 miles before work, and I'm extremely tired. I haven't had a break. Life is hectic for everybody. I don't want to do it. It's raining outside.
Yeah,
But if I don't get this 12 miles in, you know, I'm going to get behind in training, or I'm just not going to feel good about myself for tossing a training run. But regardless, I feel like mentally, that's where, for me, it's a mental run. It's not those kind of runs that I'm talking about is not going to be a physical training run. For me, forcing myself to get out of bed at 3, 4 in the morning, if it's raining, putting on a rain
oh,
jacket, you know, it's dark, I'm tired, nobody else is out, I got a long day ahead of me, and I knock out the 12 miles. I feel like that was a mental training run, you
absolutely.
know, and I feel like, you know, some people would think that's crazy, but I feel like, man, when I'm in a 100-mile race, if it's mile 70 or mile 80 and I've got nothing left and I don't want to get
Mhm.
out of the chair, I don't want to do another 20 miles, man.
You're crazy.
I feel like, you know what? That's where the mindset helps me out, because I strengthened it during training. I forced
Mhm.
myself out of bed to get that run in. And it makes it just a little bit easier to get out of the chair and do those last 20 miles, you know? So yeah, mentally and physically, you
Yeah,
know?
and you know, honestly, there's no real I mean, people can't go out and just train for 100-mile running, 100 miles, you just can't do it. I mean, you wouldn't have the
Mhm.
time. I know people that go out and run them on a regular basis, and I'm like, their body,
Uh-huh.
so used to it. But,
Yeah.
I got to the point for me, Tim, in one of mine, you know, I've only completed one.
Uh-huh.
I have
Oh, good,
I've
good.
got a couple DNFs, but, and those DNFs were very strategic in helping me learn how to adjust, right, and change things, and
Uh-huh.
great learning opportunities. That one for me, honestly, was plenty. If I don't ever run another one, that's fine.
Uh-huh.
I know I can do it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but you don't know exactly what to train for until you go out and do those things that are not considered normal. Like you said, people
Yeah.
might think you're completely crazy for getting up at 3:30 in the morning to go put in a 12 miler in the pouring down rain. Well, you have to train for the unexpected so that
Hmm.
when you are faced with that in a race,
Yeah.
you are ready. Nobody expects, 80 miles into the race, as we both know, past mile 80 is a very dark place, even
Hmm.
for the best runners out there, for an ultra, because anything can happen, anything can go wrong, and you might be in a really good spot, on your nutrition or your hydration, but you completely flip your lid mentally, and you just get completely, you might take a
Yeah.
wrong turn, or you might get lost. And most courses I've been on, you don't get lost, but there are instances, like, say it might have been like, the Moab 240, David Goggins got several miles off course. I can't even imagine being 3 or 4 miles off course in a race running at that particular,
I hear you. Yeah.
tempo. I'm like,
Yeah.
being off course for me, like when I've gotten off course maybe a half mile or a mile,
Yeah.
it messes with me mentally, and I get
Yeah.
mad because I'm like, that extra mileage is going to deplete me physically, and now I'm in a bad mental state because I'm mad. And and
Yeah.
when I get angry when I start getting angry and running angry, then I start running harder, and that's going to burn
Yeah.
me out even faster, right? And so it's like, what do you do? What do you do? But you have to prepare for
Yeah.
those adverse conditions, like running in the rain and the snow and the sleet, the extreme cold, the extreme heat. As they said in Boy Scouts, for us, you got to be prepared, and you have to be prepared for those things, mentally, physically, emotionally, even spiritually, because you go through all the emotions, you go through everything. And, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
even when you prepare, it does not always go right. It does not always go back in your favor.
Yeah. No, man, with these distance runs, I don't want to take an extra step if I don't have to.
Mm-mm.
And sometimes I tell my crew, no, don't park across the street. I don't want to walk across the street,
Um,
Um, and I hear you. So yeah, and things go wrong, that sometimes these races are just so long, they just take so long that, it's inevitable. Something is going to happen. Some things are going to happen. And we don't know what it is. We train the best we can, but we don't train for every problem. We don't create every problem so we can practice and train for it. So yeah, it's up to us, it's up to every runner.
does as far as the mental side of things, I know sometimes you get psyched up before a race, right? You get excited, you're ready to go for a race. I know in my last when I did a 50 miler back in November, you become, not to say comfortable with the distance, but you become familiar with the distance. You know what
Right,
you're in for, right? You know
right.
what you're getting ready to go up against. And it really started messing with me this last time, Tim, where it's like, I knew what I was getting ready to do. And
Hmm.
I knew I was already preparing myself that I was going to visit the pain cave. And
Yeah,
that part started really messing with me because I was like,
yeah.
I don't want to feel that pain. I don't want to feel my feet on fire. I don't want to go through
Hmm.
that physical pain. But as we both know, you have to sacrifice and you have to go through pain to get to destinations and get, complete things that you've trained for. You're not going to
Yeah.
just have someone hand you a buckle for running a 100 miler without putting yourself through pain and discomfort. Nobody goes through a 100 miler without experiencing the pain cave.
Right, right. Yeah, there's just a whole lot of psychology, and actually I'm just very intrigued with the amount of psychology that's involved with endurance sports. And maybe you know, partly that's a large reason why I gravitate towards it too. You know, there's a lot of psychology in the training. And as you said, there's just a whole lot of psychology leading up to and going into a race, you know, and especially if it's a distance that we've never done, or if we're attempting something that we want so bad, we train so hard for, and we don't know if it's going to happen or not. Yeah, there's a whole lot of psychology there leading up to it, and then a whole lot of psychology throughout the entire race too.
Absolutely.
So I'm intrigued. I'm curious, you know.
How many ultras have you run at, like hundreds?
I've done 3 100s. I've done the Keys 100. I did a cross Florida 116 miler, which takes Route 40 across Florida. And then I did the Daytona 100 back in December.
Okay, I know people that have ran definitely have ran the Keys one and the Daytona one. They loved it.
Yeah.
Said it was
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I can't remember. There's also one down there. It's like no, it's going to slip my mind. It's like ancient.
Ancient Oaks.
Yes,
Yeah.
they've ran the Ancient Oaks.
Haven't
It's
done
beautiful.
Yeah.
But the humidity will get you.
Yeah.
But you know, and with each one, you know, they're all different, right? It's all different format, all different scenery. But as we both know, even if you run the same course,
I was just gonna say, yep,
it's never the same race because there's always something different.
Yeah, so I've run a few ultras numerous times, you know, and 50Ks, 50 milers, you know, the Everglades 50 I've done probably 3 times, but and each time it's a different experience. Yeah, it's the same course and all, but you know, each year we grow as runners, and you know, we get better, and the psychology changes, and we have a lot of experience to bring to the table. Another year's worth of experience and training. Either we've trained better or we've trained worse, you know, either way, yeah, different experience.
Yeah, you got to be prepared for anything because, you know, also your confidence can get the best of you too, because, you know,
True.
I ran an ultra. It was a point to point 44 miler. I've done it numerous times now. And I went into it the next year. I was a much better runner, stronger runner, had put more mileage on my feet. And I go into the race thinking, I'm going to destroy this race this time. I'm going to go out and I'm going to better myself. Well, I had a worse time.
Yep.
And I had a complete struggle, but a lot of it had to do with the weather too. It got extremely warm and I wasn't prepared for the heat or the humidity, but I was also off on my hydration, and just the wheels fell off. And it was one of those things. It's like, I went in with high expectations.
Yeah.
But
I don't blame you.
But where I was a different runner, Tim, was the year before. If I would have experienced what I was going through, I would have went ahead and just, I'm pulling out. Yeah. But I was so determined because I was in the process of training for my 100. It's like, I can't quit. Okay. I'm in pain. The wheels have fallen off. I'm sick. You have to keep pushing. Yeah. And I think on that race, I ended up walking like 15 of the last 20 miles or whatever of the 44, which was rough. You know, you got blisters and you got nausea and you're just blowing up. And it's like, that's where you really learn who you are as a runner. Is, do you quit or do you keep going? And there's a race director. I always like to talk about this because it really resonated with me. It was up at the Boonville Back Roads 100. It's up in Boonville, Iowa, where the Bridges of Madison County, the movie, was filmed, off in that area. Gorgeous area. The race director, he said something before the race. I ended up DNFing on that one. I hit 100K and the wheels fell off. But he told us at the beginning of the race, it will always stick with me. He's like, there's 2 things that will last forever: a DNF and your buckle, right? Of finishing the race. He's like, you make that decision. But if you don't finish, that thing is going to haunt you, right? That thing's going to ride with you, and you use it. You can either decide to allow it to destroy you, or you can allow it to help you go further later on. So those things kind of resonate in your mind when you're dealing with those adverse conditions and experiences. Do I want everyone to, you know, most people are going to be like, hey, way to go. You did great. You know, you're a rock star. There's a guy here, here in the region. He had a stroke back in November. And his name is Will Sprouse. And he's ran hundreds all over America. And his nickname is Iron Will, right? And he's going out post stroke, trying to do 100-milers, and he can't even feel the right side of his body.
Jeez,
and he's still going out trying to get these 100-milers done, right? And he's like, I had to tap out at mile 60, or I had to tap out at mile 70. My body just gave out. And people are like, dude, that's phenomenal for what you're accomplishing. You are a rock star. And it's like, do you quit? And people are still going to, you know, hold you up. Hey, you did great. It just wasn't your day. Or do you keep pushing? Because as we both know, when the fanfare, everyone clears out, it's you and the road. And then you have to deal with those personal demons, because if you don't finish a race, it's not going to bother your friends that you run with. It's going to bother you, and it's going to haunt you.
Yeah. You know, I'd say the race that I struggled with the most was the Keys 100. And it was my first attempt at the 100. And I write about it in my book. And that experience, it was the toughest experience that I'd ever had in an ultra, because it completely did not go my way, you know? And for me, at mile 25, I was already vomiting, throwing up, rejecting all food and all liquid, you know? So I'm thinking, I mean, my mindset, and we've talked about, you know, mindset and where it's at and what goes through my mind. I'm thinking at mile 25, it's 90 degrees. I'm already throwing up. I can't eat, and I can't hold down any fluid. You know, what am I going to do? You know, and I literally sipped coconut water, the whole entire rest of the race. And I did, I finished, and I was lucky too. And I was also lucky that I just kept trying, you know, and I sipped coconut water, and I threw a lot of it back up. But what I sipped, I guess, got me the next mile.
You had enough in the tank.
And, you know, I write about it in the book, and, you know, I hear you. It blows my mind. You know, when I think at mile 25, I've got nothing left. All odds are against me. You know, I'm stressed out. I'm frustrated. It's my first 100. I trained so hard for this. I don't know what happened, but here I am. You know,
you got 75 more miles to go.
Yeah. Those were that was the toughest 75 miles I've ever gone in my life, you know. But I don't know. I can't say you know, what would have happened or what could have happened. You know?
When you were at that point, Tim, because I've been at that point in many races, and it's not a fun place to be, and you have to take into account, okay, I have nothing in my body. I'm completely rejecting even water or any kind of electrolyte. I know I'm in a bad spot. When you continued to go through the course of the race, did you even try to consume any more, you know, food or anything like that? Or did you just strictly stay on the coconut water?
Yeah, food was just out of the question.
Didn't sound good.
I mean, even watermelon, like something that's like 80%
that's like the
water.
Best thing to eat.
I couldn't even. Yeah. No, I just literally would sip coconut water, and I walked all day, the whole day till that sun went down. I took a lot of breaks. That ate the clock too. So I'm walking, and I was walking at a good pace too. But I was taking a lot of breaks as well, and just trying to see if the stomach pulls out of it, you know. You know, getting to and it didn't end there. The stress and frustration, it didn't end there. I get to mile 50, and I'm already, you know, 16 hours in or 15 hours in. I've already ate up half the time I have, and I'm thinking, here I am. I pushed all day just trying to hang in the race. You know, just having that cutoff just nipped me in the heels the whole way. Makes for a long day, very stressful. And at mile 50, when I realize I've already eaten up half the time that I'm allotted, I've got to do the next 50 the same speed I did the first, at least. I mean, this race wasn't even about time for me. It was about survival at this point. I just wanted to make it by cutoff. That was stressful too. At mile 50, realizing that I've already eaten half the time between breaks and walking and fighting the stomach issue. So here we are halfway, and I'm just as frustrated and stressed out as I was at mile 25. But I had to work with that. I had to fight through it mentally and physically, and yeah, that mental space, it's a dark place, and it could be a dark place for a very long time. But it made me, I believe that race, which was, I don't want to say my worst race. I want to say it was my most challenging race. I think it made me a much stronger runner, and it was the race that almost nothing went my way, but
you got it done. That's the thing.
It made me who I am today,
One of those defining moments of perseverance and endurance. And yeah, those dark miles get even darker when it gets dark outside, right? Because it's you can't see anything hardly out in front of you. And I love running at night, don't get me wrong, but when you're struggling and you can't see and you don't know really where any landmarks are at, you don't know how far you really have been going.
Yeah.
And you're just hoping to make it from aid station to aid station. And I know what it's like to take those long breaks. It's like in most races, you want to spend as little time at the aid station as possible. But man, when you're not feeling good, you get there and you kind of issues. You camp out and you start talking to the people that are at the aid stations, kind of getting your mind off of things. And then you're like, I got to keep going. And you get yourself up and you start going. It's like, it's a long, it's what I call a death march. It's a long grueling, but then when you get to that last, 5 miles or last mile, you get that little extra pep in your step.
Yeah.
You're going to make it, and you get across the finish line, and it's like, a friend of mine that got me into running, and encouraged me repeatedly to go and run a 100-miler, which I thought he was crazy. And I said, please stop bothering me like this. This is harassment. But he always told me that, there's nothing like finishing a 100-miler. He's like, I can't explain it for you. You'll have to experience it for yourself. But to finish and cross that finish line on 100, there's almost no words for it, because it's just euphoric. It's all your hard work has paid off, especially when you've gone through a challenge like you did. For the last 75 miles, you endured and you pushed through and you finished. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't a world record as far as time goes. And it's just going against the clock to beat the cutoff.
Yeah.
But man, to finish feels great.
Yeah. And I've experienced races where a lot of things went my way, and I've experienced races where a lot hasn't, and that's the beauty of it too. That's what also keeps me coming back is, every experience is different, and I grow from every experience,
Absolutely.
Good and bad,
That's one of the things I love about it, because it's like we said, it's never the same. I can go out and run, the same course over and over and over, and no run is the same. And that's probably why I love it the most. And especially why I love trail running, because trail running is definitely never the same when you go out and run it. But, you mentioned about your book. I wanted to go ahead and jump into that. So Tim's got a book that just dropped on Amazon. It's out there for pre-order right now, called The Ultra Mile: The Joy, Freedom, and Opportunities of Running. And so I'm excited to get it and read it, because just like what we were talking about, to read about your struggle and perseverance of that race. Also definitely want to read about the other stuff that's in there, but kind of take us into it, Tim, on what inspired you to write a book. Writing a book is an adventure all in itself. I've got some background in writing things and, publishing, and it's not an easy task, but to write a book and to be able to create a good product for the audience, the captive audience, and to have it to be successful.
Yeah. So here, I have a copy here. I'll hold it up so we can see it here. So this is a book that I started in January of 2020. And I'll be completely honest, it's been almost a lifelong goal to write a book someday. You know, I've always enjoyed reading. And when I got into running, I enjoyed reading about running. And, you know, I guess distance running for over 10 years. And in the meantime, getting into physical therapy and graduating and practicing. I'm a PTA in Miami, Florida, and I've been practicing for a little over 6 years, almost 7. You know, I can't help but to see similarities in what I practice, strengthening, stretching. You know, there's a lot in physical therapy there, injury prevention. You know, things like that happen to fall into my training in a sense.
Sure.
And I just wanted to, you know, I have a love for science. You know, I have a love for philosophy. And as we spoke about earlier, I'm intrigued with psychology. And I've tended to write this book with a blend between, I guess you can say, those four topics, you know, philosophy, psychology, science, and personal experience. And yeah, I've always loved writing too. And I've never written anything like a book. You know, I wrote papers in school, but that was about it. But this was an opportunity for me to take on a goal for myself at my own pace and pursue something that I enjoy. You know, I enjoy writing, I enjoy reading, I enjoy talking about running. You know, I get to write a book about what I want to talk about, you know?
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's I'm excited about it. I really am. It's released on May 10th. So it's up for pre-order now on Amazon, and it'll be up for pre-order until May 10th. And that's when it ships. So I'm excited.
That's awesome stuff. And yeah, you know,
Yeah.
I know we talked about it a little bit before we jumped on here. It's like, you know, you never know what you're gonna. It's much like running an ultra, right? You don't know. It's the unknown. Is you write a book, you pour your heart and all this work into doing something. And honestly, Tim, even if nobody even wanted to buy your book, which I know that's not going to be the case, but it doesn't matter because you did it because it's something you've always wanted to do, and you pursued it and you've done it. And I mean, that's just like going out and training for a race, right? You persevered, you spent time, you spent lots of time, I'm sure, writing and editing and making sure it looked good and sounded good. And if you're like me, when I go in, I start writing something, I'm constantly editing it and, you know, rephrasing it. Oh, that doesn't sound right. Punctuation here and punctuation there. And I'm going to scratch through this, cut and paste. I will say this, the beauty of technology these days is so much better than when it was when I was in school, when we were writing papers, because it's like, you know, Word is my friend to where, you know, I can see where I made a change and I can cut here and paste here and blend these two sentences together. And that sounds better. But I am my own worst critic when it comes to writing, because I was like, man, that doesn't sound good. But then when people read it, they're like, that sounds great. And so regardless if someone buys it or not, that's not the point. The point is you wanted to do something, you went out and did it. Just like when I went out to run my 100-miler, probably just like you did, you wanted to accomplish something and it was a goal and you've done it. And now the fruits of your labor are out there for anybody that wants to read about running. And, you know, some people might think, well, why do I want to read another running book? You know, well, the way I see it is we should always be willing to get educated and learn, because if we stop learning, we're not going to grow as individuals. And me personally, just like listening to podcasts of other runners or reading about other runners, you begin to learn more about other people and what they go through. And that's one of the reasons why I love learning more about individuals and talking to individuals such as yourself on here, is you learn about people's struggles. You learn about how they adapt and how they navigate through challenges, much like what I've gone through. So then you can relate and you've got that relation. And that's where relationship comes in. It's like, okay, we've got something in common. We have common ground. And like, you know, we've talked about, the running community is like one big family. I don't know. I can't even probably count on one hand the number of people that don't want to talk about running if they're a runner,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it allows us to learn more about each other. It allows us to grow as individuals. And, there's stuff that you've shared today that's like, you know what? Yeah, I probably need a little more toughness in some areas. And I'm sure when I read your book and others will read your book, the psychology and the philosophy, and those exercises and strengthening things like that, I'm weak in that area, man. I really got to work
yeah,
on some of those
yeah.
areas. And
We all have weaknesses. Yep, yep.
my weakness is being consistent in my strength training, and that's why I deal with these little nagging injuries, because I don't take the extra time. I can encourage and coach somebody till the cows come home, and I can go out and run all day long,
Mhm.
but then I don't spend the extra time I need to focus in that. And that's where we have to, as ultra runners, you have to keep a balance, because if something gets off, something else is going to break, right? Something's going to fall apart.
Yeah, yeah. No, you said so much, and yeah, balance, consistency. You know, everybody. I believe everybody has something to offer. Everybody has something to offer. And hey, if this book helps one person out there,
Absolutely.
if one person, writes me an email and says, "Hey, this book helped me in these areas," that'll make me feel like the writing of the entire book was worth it, because it's already worth it to me. I love the book. I did this to contribute and to, accomplish a goal of my own. And I hope to put something out there that perhaps somebody can benefit from. This is what's helped me. This is, my experience, my philosophies of it, what goes on with my psychology, and the science that I've learned and tend to apply. I can't say that it's going to help everybody, but if it helps one person, I'm happy, And yeah, everybody's got something to offer somebody,
That's exactly right. Even if it's just a little bit, a little bit, as they say, one foot in front of the other, right? And so every
Yeah.
little bit helps. And yeah, if one person can get motivated or inspired with, this podcast and this video that'll go out on YouTube, then I've done what I
Exactly.
want to do, right? It's being able to
Exactly.
contribute to the running community and help other people. And
That's
I
it.
think that's the awesome part of being able to do these things is, we share our experiences.
Yeah.
You're never going to learn unless someone shares something, because we all have a story to tell, and it's just a
Yeah.
matter of people being able to go and have that opportunity to share. Not everybody wants to share their stories, because they might
Yeah.
feel like, I don't think I can do this. Well, we got to get you through those fears, right? And
Yeah.
everybody's different. There's lots of people I've talked to, they're like, I don't want to do a podcast. Well, why?
Yeah.
Well, I don't like talking about myself. And it's like, you got to kind of get past that, because people will post stuff on social media about their workouts, on Instagram. I see it, I do it. They're posting their pictures, they're posting their workouts, they're posting their races. And I'm like, you may not like talking about yourself, but you sure like posting about yourself. So I don't see it as a prideful thing. If you're a successful runner, or if you're somebody that just goes out and does it for fun, you might have something within you that people need to hear. There might be something, Tim, that, that we've touched on today, that somebody was like, oh, I never thought about it that way. And the same with reading your book. I've never thought about thinking of it from that psychological standpoint of doing this, or, wow, this guy actually struggled for 75 miles and not eating any food and throwing his guts up the whole way. Wow. Talk about perseverance.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Wow, I could do that too. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, just hearing that reminds me of the race that I ran a couple of years ago. It was a 50K starting temperature. We were in a massive heat wave, 99 degrees. It was in the Ouachita forest in Arkansas.
Wow.
So there's no wind, right? It's trees everywhere. As you know, humidity just likes to just sit there in the trees.
Yeah.
It was the race started at 9 o'clock that evening, and it was 99 degrees when the race started. And I was already sweating profusely before the race even started. I was like, I'm in trouble. I already
There
knew
goes
it.
electrolytes. Yeah,
And
before
I'm
the
like,
race
I'm
begins.
sweating before
Yeah.
I'm even running. And
Yeah.
my warm up shirt that I was wearing was soaked. I'm like, this isn't a good situation. And, it's a 50K. And I was like, I got this. I've ran many of these. Mm-mm. By mile 12, I was already depleted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, I was sitting there at mile 23 and had friends, come on, you can do this. You can do this. No, I can't do this. And I was so sick, just like you were. And it was a very dark, the dry heaves. And
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
I saw the sweeper vehicle coming through, and I was like, but I sat there for like 30 minutes trying to cool off and collect myself. And I was like, man, I'm in a really bad place. And that's a fine line, because it's like I probably could have walked it, but I just at that time I wasn't strong enough mentally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's encouraging to hear when you're like, hey, and the humidity and the heat, and you're like, I just sipped on coconut water, and it's like, it
Yeah.
makes it all better.
I mean, yeah, and everybody's different, and we've talked about, it's nervous going into a distance we've never done before. And the same thing with this book, it's a bit nerve-wracking, putting a
Sure.
book out there, talking about myself, letting everybody in on.
You're an open book now, right? You're
I'm an open book. Yeah.
You've shared your probably some of your dark secrets, and the
Yeah.
skeletons are in the closet, and here they are open for people to read. But
But yeah, if somebody can benefit from one thing,
absolutely.
that's it.
So Tim, let me ask you, what
Sure.
are some things? I know you just recently finished the Pistol 100K, and
Yeah.
that's a very well known race. What are some of the other? Do you have some other races that are on the
I
agenda?
am. Yeah, so I'm signed up for the Vero Beach 100. It's, I believe, July 26th, July 25th, something like that, end of July. So here we go. I'm expecting 90 degrees, that the humidity, and I'm also registered for the Miami 100 in September. I'm expecting that one to be a hot one as well. I chose those because I wanted to revisit the 100 a few more times here. But I was also looking to increase the difficulty a little bit.
Sure.
Because my long-term goal is I want to do a 150-mile race. It's 155, and it goes across Georgia. I think it's called the CGG, Coastal Georgia something, Coastal Causeway. But it's in March of 2022.
Okay.
And so the way I see it, I don't see too many races between the 100 and the 150. So how can I properly prepare myself and my mindset for 150 miles? So I decided, let me increase the difficulty of the hundreds here leading up to it. And that should work the mindset pretty good. And, keep my fingers crossed, get through those. And yeah, I would like to attempt the one in Georgia in March of 2022. So yeah, that's what I'm training for. Those are going to be hot races. So I'm going to do some heat training.
I was going to say, you got to definitely get that heat training and that hydration going. And as far as somebody that's training for 100 milers on a regular basis, what's kind of I know like you said, everybody's different. Some people tend to gravitate towards the least possible, and some are heavier as far as mileage goes. Where do you kind of fit in the picture for your training mileage on a regular basis?
So what I've done, and this is not right or wrong, this is maybe not what works for everybody else, but what I've found works for me is I have tended to train up to about 70, 80 miles a week, leading up to 100. And I usually toss in there marathon long runs, some back-to-backs, and I'll probably do some 50Ks and 50 milers leading up to the 100. So I would probably run no more than a 50 miler or 100K leading up to it. It could be maybe 2 months before, maybe a month before, whatever works out. But yeah, I usually peak around maybe 70, 80 miles, and you know, slow running. I don't go out there and
Yeah.
train for speed. I'm not fast. I'm a mid-pack runner. And I finish average times. And I throw some strengthening in there too to try and build up the fatigue resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas the running volume is not quite maybe going to take me the whole way, that's possibly where the strength kicks in. Some of that fatigue resistance, the muscles are there for me
Right.
late in the race. Maybe I don't train past 50 miles or 100K, but when I do the 100, there's still, you know, undone 30 miles in there that I haven't been to in training. So what's going to support me during those 30, 40 miles that I didn't necessarily train for? Well, hopefully the volume and the consistency and some of the strength, you know?
Muscle memory and all of that, right?
Yeah.
You know, most ultra runs, you know, as far as I understand, most of it's about 85, 90% mental. The rest of it is what you got in training, right? Because, you know, you get those 25, 30-mile training runs, those back-to-back long runs, you know, you can go out there and, you know, I tended to train about 60, 65. I think 70 was my peak week for 100, but you know, on the most part, it was between 40 and 60 on a regular basis, right? With my long runs on the weekend. But it's that time on the feet. You don't have to go out for speed because, as we both know, it's for the endurance part. And when you're middle of the pack runner, like we both are, you're not going to go out there and you're not going to run like Jim Walmsley and breaking records, right? You're going to go out and it's going to be a grind, and it's going to be going out there to do it. And so it's endurance. And so that strength training definitely is going to play in your favor. Do you do any other type of cross training at all?
I have in the past. Lately, with everything I have going on, and the company that I'm also running, and the full-time job, and the kids, the family, etc. I just find that possibly the strengthening is it. You know, that's my cross training, and it also, it's two birds with one stone. It's strengthening as injury prevention too. So it kind of works for me because it's, you know, it's a time and energy thing. I only have so much time. I only have so much energy. And I have to be very selective with what I put that time and energy into, you know, and so.
You definitely hit that because, you know, having a family with kids and full-time job and running businesses and writing books and, you know, there's only so many hours in the day, and something generally gets cut, right? There's things that you have to sacrifice when you're training for things or preparing for things, and you got to make sure it's the right thing that gets cut and not the wrong thing, because you don't want to hurt yourself and shorten your opportunities. And that's
the strength too. You know, sometimes I get up at 3 a.m. It's not, you know, I don't like getting up at that time. It's just, you know, with the kids, you know, I choose to, the majority of my training gets done before they wake. You know?
I agree. And that's how it's been for me as well, Tim. I mean, right now I don't have to worry about those, you know, weekend runs where I'm going out running 4 or 5 hours for back-to-backs, because, you know, that's what would happen. And with my kids being active in sports, with soccer and other sports, you want to enjoy that family time, and you don't want to sacrifice that. And you want to keep, you know, as they say, if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy. I got to keep my wife happy, got to keep the kids happy. So I have to sacrifice some sleep and get my runs done either early in the morning or late at night.
Yeah.
But that's also great training for ultra running, because if you're training on tired legs, or if you're training fatigued, that's kind of like the two birds with one stone mentality, because if you're running tired and you're going on little sleep, that's already preparing you for those overnight adventures. As we know,
I'm with you there. Yeah.
Nobody likes to get up to run at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
No way, man. That's crazy. I like my sleep. But if you're training for a race and you're going to be running at 3 a.m., you need to know what it feels like to run at that time when you're running on very little sleep. So definitely good training. And I think I would probably do like you, a little cross training. Yeah, that's great. But strength training, it's injury prevention. it's going to give you that extra leg up, literally when you're depleted and you've got those extra miles to run towards the end of your race. So good stuff. I guess the last thing I want to ask you, Tim, because I could sit here all day and all night and talk running. What's one thing that really motivates you to keep going? I mean, I know you love to run. You enjoy the challenge and the things that come with it, but what's something else that motivates you?
Yeah, I would say the feeling of accomplishments, you know, just setting myself up for accomplishments. And as those are being accomplished, you know, just knowing, hey, what's next? You know, I like growth. I like to grow as a person. I like to grow as an athlete. I like to grow in any which direction I place myself in. And if I'm not trying to grow, you know, I feel like I'm stagnating or plateaued or even regressing. And I just don't think that's in my personality. You know, I just feel the need to continue to better myself. And I think that's what motivates me, you know, and I guess I channel that in all aspects, you know.
Good stuff. I'm right there with you, man. It's like you just motivate yourself to keep going, and that feeling of satisfaction of completing things and, you know, taking on the next challenge. And so great stuff. For those that are watching or listening, you can find Tim out on Instagram at Go the Ultra Mile. Go to Amazon, check out his book, The Ultra Mile, The Joy, Freedom, and Opportunities of Running. That's on pre-order right now till May 10th. Then it drops live, and hope you guys will check it out. I can't wait to check it out. And Tim, it's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you today and just be able to share a little bit of running back and forth. And I'll continue to follow along with you on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I wish you the best in your training and your upcoming races this summer. And I look forward to seeing you conquer those 100-milers.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite, Anthony. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, my man. And we will talk to you later. Take care.
All right, you too.
Thanks.